So you're probably working around with n8n workflows and you're just looking at your data and you're thinking, what the hell is going on here? Why do we have these duplicates? Why is it referencing the wrong duplicate? Why is it updating the wrong duplicate data? And it just gets really annoying. And the reason why it's getting annoying is because you haven't cleaned your data. So you want to control and clean your data and mold it so that whenever you're transforming it, it actually works properly for you. If that's you, if that's what you're dealing with, then you're at the right place. So, by the way, for context, the name's Muzi. I'm the Grand Alchemist of the Guild. If you know who I am, then good for you. I'm very happy to have you here again. If you don't know, then there's still time for you to find out. Today we're going to be looking at data processing in n8n, and by the end of this video, you're going to be controlling your data like a god. So let's just start. Let me not even yap too much. Automation is all about data transformation, right? And you want to make sure that before you transform your data, you want to clean it up and have it represented in the way that you actually want, or the way that's most useful for you. Um, I'm going to show you what this means in a second. First, we're just going to go through some essential nodes that will get you thinking in the direction that I want you to go. The first node we're going to look at is the remove duplicates node. So this basically just remove duplicate entries based on whatever condition you have. So it could be based on the field, it could be based on the whole item itself, the whole object. And this is just to keep your data clean and to make sure that the data is reliable. What I mean by that is, think of the example where you're running multiple databases based on some kind of like way that you're getting people in. So for an example, you have two sheets in a Google Sheet. One is getting leads from Facebook, another is getting leads from Instagram. Excuse me. So hypothetically, you have people, maybe a few of them signing up on both because that's just like that, you have that many touch points with them. You don't want to have both like fields represent that same person. You might want to have only one field represent that same person, but you might have like a score representative of the fact that you have more touch points with them. Right? That's going to be the more useful field. Um, again, um, that's just what you do. Like, what you want to do with this is to remove that duplicate field and then have it update on the main one, telling it, hey, this person is actually, bump their score higher so that we could maybe send him more resources and more ideas so that he could get sort of, so that we could push his chances of conversion even higher. Let's look at how the remove duplicates node actually works, and this is how it looks. Here what I'm doing is I'm mocking data using a code node. We could check out what is going on inside here. So I have three sort of pieces of data, and these is just, I'm setting them up as constants. So const data one, that is just a piece of data, and it's an object delineated by these curly brackets. And you might notice every object has these keys that are names and these values, which is whatever value it has. You might notice something immediately, and that's the fact that there's two duplicates here. I'll just run this just to show you. And then there's a third, Samantha Smith, which is just a random, Smith. So yeah, these two are duplicated, and this third one is Samantha Smith. And if you watched our previous video on data structures, then you'll know what this whole data structure is. It's a list of items or an array of objects. Let's move on to the next node. So the next node, the remove duplicates node, it has three main settings, right? You could remove items repeated within the current input. You could remove items processed in the previous executions, or you could clear the deduplication history, right? Very simple. And there's also there's a few comparison operations here. You could remove based on all the fields. You could remove based on all the fields except a few fields. You could remove based on selected fields. So this means that you could remove fields based on maybe the date that they came in, or you could remove fields except a certain field that is maybe a certain type of query that the people who put in their information left you. Um, you know, there's so many ideas here, but let me just show you how this would look. What we're doing here is we're comparing all the fields, which means it's going to look at all the fields. And if every field, so every key has matching values, it's going to remove that item. So here we have three items coming in, and here in the output we only have two items coming out, which means that it removed one of them, and as you'd expect, it removed John Smith. That's just how remove duplicates works. It has a bunch of functionality, and again, now you're starting to understand how this might clean up your data and make it more easier to use, right? You don't want multiple data items, because if you are updating values, then you'd only want to update that value on one of them. You might even want to remove the duplicate entirely, um, just to also save yourself some space, and to also like give yourself some breathing room, and just ways of like scaling, maybe, because like there some services actually limit the amount of entries you can have um, in your database. So that's just another way that you could actually just start thinking about this, just a way to save yourself some time and some resources, I guess. Let's look at the next point. So here, the next essential node that we're going to be dealing with is the aggregate node. The aggregate node is very useful, and this is just when you want to group multiple entries into smart data sets that you want to just look at, and like just only look at those data sets. What that means is you want to summarize certain data pieces or data items by a certain category. This is also very useful. So think about it in the terms of maybe you have a bunch of people. um, if you only want their names, then you could just aggregate their names and use those names in a certain interesting way. Um, you want to combine their data for easier use, then you could like aggregate those kinds of fields. Let me show you how it works actually, just to sort of illustrate. So again, we're mocking data, but you'll soon notice something different here, and it's the fact that the second item is not a duplicate, right? We only mocked it to duplicate just to show you how it would look like for removing duplicates. But here we're doing something different, so we added a different person, that is Henry Gibson. Now what we're doing here in this aggregate node is we are checking for individual fields. We are aggregating individual fields, but there's also another option for aggregating all item data into a single list. Let's actually check how that would look. So the output data is going to be put in a data field, and we're going to include all the fields, which is interesting. What this is going to do is it's going to create one item with an array of items inside it. So it sounds kind of convoluted when you think about it. It's like, uh, but that's only because we're including all the fields. If we include specified fields and just drag them in here, maybe we drag in the name and the query, and if we go test step over here, you'll see something really interesting happen, where it'll only have data on these people. Um, excuse me. So yeah, like as you can tell, this is very useful. Let's check out the other option, which is probably the option that you're going to be using most often. What you can do is you can drag in the field name, say hypothetically a useful field name that you want to use more often. You can even rename this field, say, to something like names. That is way more useful. And here you can just run this just so that you could see. What it does is it gives you one key, and then it gives you an array of values. So whatever type value it was, in this case the type was string. We'll go through data types at a later section, but the type for this was a string. Gave you an array of strings based on the number of items that came in. And as I said before, that's just how sort of data works. When data comes through, it gets run based on the logic of the node itself, and then it gets run based on the number of items that came through. In this case, there were three items, so the node ran three times, and it gave three outputs. So it kept appending those three outputs into this array of three items. So yeah, again, you can add fields to aggregates. It uses the exact same logic. We could add in whether or not we contacted them and whether or not they followed up over here. And when we do that, it will just create those different fields again. Very useful when you want to sort of have these sectioned, very important pieces of data that you want to use at a later flow. Um, very useful to just use an aggregate and just push that. So let's keep going. The limit node, it lets you focus on top performing data. What you want to do, say, if you have a few items and you have some kind of sorting algorithm for them, so you already sorted them before based on some condition, right? Say hypothetically you sorted them based on a score or something. Now remember, what you want to do is you want to score leads based on whether or not they actually like qualified or not. So if your leads have high scores, you only want to concern yourself with the top ones because you only have so many resources, right? Your resources are time, being time and money. You only want to focus on the ones that will actually bring you returns. So limit can help you do that kind of limiting in an automated way. It lets you limit the number of nodes that pass through to a certain number. So here, what you want to do is you could limit to any number, right? You could set this as 2 or 1. You're keeping the first or the last, so meaning the top performers or the bottom performers, depending on how you're sorting this array, or I guess you could say this list of items, right? And it's going to give you exactly how you wanted it. In this case, it's giving us 2. It's just John and Henry. So Samantha, unfortunately, is cooked and she's not really going to be getting any attention from us. Let's keep going. The sort node, it organizes sort of items in a list by key metrics and any other ideas that you want to have. Let me just show you very quick so how this works. So again, we have the same code node um, with the same 3 people, John, Henry, and Samantha. And what we're doing here is we're doing a simple sort based on the name, and we're going to be sorting them in ascending order. That's just like I literally just read that downwards like this. There are 3 types of sort. There's a random sort that gives you random, so it just sorts them randomly. And then there's a code sort. We'll check that out later on. I just want to show you how this simple sort works. So now it's sorted everything based on the name. So it gave us a list of items, but every one of these items was sorted based on the name. So H came first, and then J, and then S. If we had 2 Henrys, but one of them was Henry Zamalek or something, I don't even know if that's the name, but that Zamalek would come afterwards, of course, as you'd imagine. So that's how it works. The random sort just sorts them randomly. This is useful if for like whatever use case you're just trying to have. This is useful. Um, this is useful, and what you so I'll just run it again just to show you just how random it is. So everything changes every single time. Sometimes it doesn't change because that's just the nature of randomness. There are times when it doesn't change. So now the code is probably the most interesting way. Again, you could run this in a code node and you'll soon see how something like that is possible. But here you could sort of sort these based on code, which is JavaScript code. It already gives you something sort of interesting that you could do. We're going to do a simple sort based on the name, and we're just going to be doing it in code just to show you. So here what we did was we set the field name as name, and what it's doing is it's evaluating whether or not this name is like because at the end of the day, at the base level, even strings are represented as numbers, so you can do comparison operations on them, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, um, it's evaluating whether this name, sort of like the H in Henry, is like it's a letter that is sort of higher than J or not. And if it's not higher, then it's probably lower, so it's going to put Henry in the first position, and so on and so forth. So now, after doing that sort of recursively, it comes up with this kind of sorted list of items here, which is very powerful application. Let's save. Okay, so next we can look at split. So it splits data into manageable chunks, and this is also one of the most useful nodes that you'll ever find. especially when it comes to loops. If you have a loop that is running based on some condition that you might want to split your data, just to, because like sometimes maybe some services give you tons of data, but what you want to do is you want to split that data into single items that are running through flows. You can do that with the split node. Let me show you. So here we have, again, same code, same three items that are coming through the node. And what we're doing here is we're choosing the field to split as email. So we're splitting based on the email. And what we're doing is we're including selected other fields, which is follow up and contacted. And you'll see how this output is different from the output that we got from the you'll see how this output is different from the one we got from the previous one. Let me just show you. So here, what we got before was a single item with multiple items inside it, but this time we're getting three items again, which is very interesting. So that's basically just the power of split. Um, it's capable of splitting out. Like since we have three items coming in, then we're splitting them out into three items on the output, and we're able to include certain things. You could have situations where you have one item coming in, but that item has an internal array of items, and you could split out that and then have that flow through as its own little item stream. Um, it's just split out is very powerful. Keep your eye on it because you'll be using it often. Um, let's check this out. Let me just run this and then we'll go through what Summarize does. So Summarize is for making informed decisions. There are tons of little operations that it does. You can total up fields, you can count, you can add up numbers, you can find the average of certain fields. Um, I'll explain that to you very, very soon when we check it out. So just an example here. What we're doing here is we're doing a max aggregation on the contacted field. What it's trying to come up with is trying to come up with the maximum value for contacted. And what it does is it concatenates the max, sort of the operation that it's doing, and then underscore with the field name. And that's all that it's sending off, which is really interesting and also something you should be paying attention to. So here, when we're just concatenating, what we're doing is we can grab sort of information. Um, so think about if you want to grab information on everyone, like their names. Um, you could just grab the concatenated names of. I'm so sorry about that. You could just grab the concatenated names of everyone involved. So like John Smith, Henry Gibson, Samantha Smith. And this is very useful for logging purposes and so on and so forth. There's all sorts of like operations here, like sum, min, max, count unique is also very interesting, and it's definitely worth checking out. So, but probably my favorite is the code node, the God node, as I like to call it. You can do literally any. Like I feel like you can do literally anything in n8n. You can do it inside a code node. You can transform messy data, you can store information with logic, you can loop through nested structures, you can add conditions, filters, you can add new keys into objects. Let me just show you an interesting application. Um, Again, this is the same three items that are flowing through. It's Samantha, Henry, and John. But what we're doing here is we want to score them based on their perceived value. So it's based on whether or not, so it's based on the date that we received the information, based on whether or not we contacted them and we're now following up on them. Now you'll see something interesting happening where it'll come up with, sorry about this. getting contacted. But okay, this is running. Let me just stop it so that we can run it again. And okay, finish running, which is great. Now you'll notice that there's a new field here, which is called score. And these scores are different based on the conditionals that we're setting. We're looking at these fields and we're trying to figure out whether or not we should score them highly. And yeah, the higher your score is, the better your chances. So this is just something we could be using to evaluate whether or not we could be like taking someone seriously, someone in our database. Very, very useful stuff. So yeah, that's just the power of internet. And like, there's all sorts of use cases for these systems. So people in e-commerce setting up VIP workflows for top customers. So they probably have like fields in their databases where they're keeping track on of how much people are spending, and then they're sending targeted sort of emails to these certain people who are sort of more capable of spending, just to drive more sales for their business and to also give them like VIP discounts and so on and so forth. So this makes your customers happy, but also keeps your business flowing, which is very good. Coaches are using these types of systems for like targeted email sequences, because once you start processing data in the right ways, you'll know who to send your emails to. As I said with the e-commerce example, um, if you're a coach and you just want to sort of help someone, um, but they are not responding to your emails, or like they don't even open them at all, you don't want to send them emails, right? You want to make sure that you only send your emails to the right people who have been engaging with your content. And that's just like, if you can do this in an automated way, if you can keep track and score people in an automated way, then it becomes that much simpler. So creators are putting their content insights in a Notion board just so like they could look at it in some kind of dashboard. And again, very useful stuff. Like, you grab data from some kind of like YouTube API or some kind of Facebook Graph API or something, and just get all that data somewhere where it could be useful to, somewhere where you could use it. And before you put that data there, you still have to process it. You still have to. You could add different fields, you know, based on, like, you could count up the number of videos that you posted and just display that data in a Notion board. You could do interesting things that like only you could imagine. But yeah, and again, there's also the idea of having daily CRM updates, where just based on however you were interacting with your leads. Um, Really powerful applications that are actually really easy to build. So just to wrap up, you can transform, clean, and control your data for better outputs. And the most useful nodes to remember for this are the remove duplicates node, the aggregate node, the limit node, the sort node, the split in batches node, the summarize node, and also the code node. Because if you master the God node, you become a god and you unlock endless possibilities. So I am absolutely ready to dive deeper. I know you are as well. So next time we're going to be looking at data manipulation, how to control the flow, so that it doesn't control you. And I will see you there.